Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast, proudly brought to you by Pat and George from Mortgage Choice SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams. We're here for NRL Supercoach Round 16, the second of the major buy rounds for the 2023 seasons. We're coming off what was one of the most chaotic weeks we've seen in Supercoach for as long as I can remember, just in terms of big guns going down all in the space of 1 week. Dave Fafita, Nathan Cleary, Dylan Brown, Cody Walker, Jack DeBellin, Billy Smith, Zach Hosking. Obviously, the last few there not as necessarily big dogs, but Spy just the biggest names in the like you nearly rattled off my 4 best players. They're all gone in one, and not many people got out of it alive. Like it was everyone copped it because they were such highly owned players. Never seen anything like it.
Yeah, big week. I guess the only blessing is that it wasn't a bye weekend, so at least we had sort of depth to call on, or most of us would have, so that was something. But it was all happening, wasn't it? It just shows what can happen at any stage throughout the year, and that's why we kind of bang on a little bit about saving trades at some point in the season. You don't want to go too low, too close to the end of the year, which will be something I'll speak about this episode for me, but this is all happening, wasn't it? A
week like that, Spy, is why I sort of hammer home and why I'm so adamant about this building squad depth and sort of trying to avoid nuffs. We'll get to nuffs a little bit later on in the show, but as I said, so fortunate that it happened on a week where there was a full round of games and a bit deeper into the season where we had decent coverage, but it's around the bye period where players get rested, there's niggles, all sorts of things happen, and it's just so important to have some depth in your squad. I got out of it relatively well, okay, with 1,299 points. I thought that was actually quite a good score. I dropped actually down about 300 spots to 2,900 overall, also known as sitting comfortably in the 2,000s. But a week for myself, Katoa, who I brought in last week, he got injured, played about 10 minutes. A really difficult watch because the Storm turned one on. Nelson Asafa-Solomona came on that edge through that corridor of Matty Moylan and Teague Wilton, who just forgot how to tackle, that being Moyser, and just that edge that struggled all season. Ellie could have had such a big week. Regardless, though, had Mitch Moses, brought him in as skipper. He was on 80 after about 25 minutes, ended up on 86 or something. So regardless, though, mate, with all those key outs, got out of it okay. How'd your squad go?
Mate, we actually haven't caught up. This is as fresh as I've ever come into a podcast, so I don't think you know how I went. I don't even know the team list from today. I was going to check them pre-podcast. I'm like, let's do a live reaction.
Yeah, well, we thought I was about to, because there's a lot of team news that's come through, so the carnage doesn't get a lot better, and I was about to Spy came into the studio just after 4 when I'd gone through it. He hadn't had a chance to, and he goes, let's do this live, and I said, great call.
Live reaction. In terms of me, mate, this was my Sunday arvo. I feel like this has happened a little bit too much this year, which isn't great. I was chatting to actually Matty Ryan on the weekend, and being the competitor he is, he's like, I'm looking at an okay score again. I want to go high. I'm like, good on you. Like, that's good. But also, I think the successful Supercoach seasons are the ones where you don't have too many disaster weeks. I think I've had a couple too. I think it's like my 3rd disaster week this year, which hurts. So what happened was I captained Nicho, which on the surface I was so pumped about. He just didn't really strike a blow like the rest of Cronulla. I also had brought in Katoa. He had an early offload. He could have gone mental. I think Josh King, I think it was, rolled through a 20-metre gap at one point. That would have been Ellie. And then just to add bang to the buck, I had Nakora who got sin bin with like a minute left. I'm like, thanks, guys. Thank you.
I brought Nakora in for it as well.
Yeah, so he still played well, which is nice. But yeah, that ended up costing me a bunch of points, and I ended up dropping from, I'd got into 5K evens and straight back down to 9K in one game. I was pretty good up into that game as well, so it doesn't take much, but hopefully on the flip side we can do the reverse this weekend. But yeah, it's a pretty tough watch.
That's the thing, Spy. You know as well as anyone, particularly during the bye period, that as quick as you can drop, you can rise with a good week. So whilst Carlos went huge this weekend.
He did.
Yeah, jump on, listen to the Weekly Wrap podcast, rip a listen this week. He was about almost 1,500.
The only thing good that happened was I woke up Sunday night, went to the loo, and I was like, I'll just check the updates for Para, and Mitchie had gone down to 89. I'm like, it didn't seem like much, but that's someone who doesn't own and didn't captain. It all added up this weekend.
Halves that go nuts in Supercoach, not even go nuts, like go well enough. Halves ones that really do normally update in final updates, and like, oh my God.
But he
Nicho Hines, he updated about 15 and did nothing.
Oh,
and then Moses, who went on a tear, drops 10. I was like, come off.
Million offloads still, Nicho. He's getting involved still. Oh. But what was I going to say about Mitchie? That watch on Sunday, I nearly turned it off. I was like, I can't do this. It's killing me. So despite all that, I feel like I actually got away with one to a degree because Mitchie could have been 160, 180 very comfortably. So, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I ended up bringing in Mitchie Moses, even leading into the weekend, had a bit of, there's a pretty strong word around that Mitchie was going to be the Blues number 7. The philosophy that I went off was that even though I knew he was missing round 13, I thought that I could cover him. He had the good match against the Doggies there. Next week, backing up, has another nice matchup against the Dolphins. And then I just figured this is all pending Nicho getting in or out of Origin. He's now obviously missed it. Big news coming up shortly. But with an eye to flipping Moses to Nicho Hines probably in round 18 when the Sharks played the Dragons. As it's turned out, Nicho's missed Origin and I now own both of them and they alternate nicely. So pretty happy with how it's played out, but was happy to buy him anyway. Anyway, for the record, if I'm a bit lethargic on this one, just public holidays. Great things unless you work in sporting media, sporting content, because there's still sport on. There's still rugby league. Nothing really changes. So the Bloke in a Bar podcast, 3.5 hour absolute masterclass, I would call it. That was recorded just before this one. So going from that one into this, so playing a bit of catch up. So we'll smack this one out tonight. Maybe a bit shorter, only 5 games as well.
Let's get through it.
Let's get through it, mate. So shout out firstly though, Ollie Davies, Sydney Thunder, BBL star, stalwart of the Cooma Stallions, Supercoach BBL side for a couple of seasons now. 104th for the round in NRL Supercoach, 1,625 points. Also an SC Playbook listener. Good man. What a monster.
What a legend, eh?
Yeah.
What a legend.
So, Ollie...
what did Joel get then? 1,800?
Probably about 18,000. So, yes, on today's show, we'll go through the key takes from Team List Tuesday, live reaction for the Supercoach Spy. Topic for the week, we're simply going to go through our round 16 planning, how many numbers we've got, answer questions such as, if you already have 13, do you make extra trades to get players in when it's only the top 13 scoring players? Things like this, how many trades you should have left, where we're standing there. So just assessing the situation. Essentially, our hot topics is Nicho Hines a must. Even though there's got that high break, even the bye next week, you might have a gun halves combination already. Makes it a little bit of an awkward one. Our round 16 trades and skippers. A few listener questions to wrap it up. Spy.
Team news.
Team news.
All right, hit me with it.
You don't know.
I've currently got 16 before teams, just as a rep. So that puts me at ease a little bit, because if I had 13, I'd be in full panic stations.
Going chronologically through the teams that are on. North Queensland Cowboys. Jason Taumalolo back is the only major news.
Excellent.
Going through to the Penrith Panthers. I feel like it's a Dally M count when they do the 3-2-1s. Polling 2 votes. Penrith Panthers.
In the 12 jersey.
Tyrone Peachey at centre.
Okay, huge.
So Stephen Crichton, 18th man for the Penny Panthers.
Makes sense, obviously.
Great news for Peachey owners. Like, Peach, just need one more week from you, buddy. Starting centre. Big news for Peachey owners. Tom Jenkins in on the wing.
Ooh, yep.
Tommy, a potential. We're getting towards enough season. He's a bloke that if he is indeed sort of next in line on the wing at Penrith, which we sort of thought for a while that he may have been. There was him and sort of Jesse McLean. But yeah, Tom Jenkins, he's one where if you need a number this week, very cheap, he's one that you could potentially bring in.
Yeah, if you want to go down and, don't hate it. I mean, on end of a Penrith backline, late in the year, they give one of the boys a rest, potentially plays again as a key number late in the season.
Yeah.
Don't hate it.
I think probably round 19 is better if you do want to go for that enough option, because it's going to be a more difficult round for Supercoaches numbers-wise. That being said, he'll either nuff out or he could potentially be a starting winger for Penrith. So if there is an injury to the wingers at Penrith, To'o or Taruva, he could be next in line to be a genuine play in 17.
Could be huge, yeah.
Anyway, one to monitor. Also at Penrith, second row forwards. Left edge, Scott Sorensen.
Yep.
Right edge, Zach Hosking.
Come on. That's huge. Needed that one.
Big win.
Zachy back off a resting. You just always get a bit nervous when they say rested in case it's not really that, but back for 80 minutes, you ripper. I hope.
Moving on. Saturday afternoon, McDonald Road Stadium. Newcastle Knights versus Sydney Roosters. at the Newcastle Knights. Greg Marzhew, out.
It's the only one I knew. And that would have been like an absolute dagger live because I just saw it on our WhatsApp thing in the car when I was going to check teams and I pulled out, oh no.
That's a blow. So
during the bye week, weaker opposition. Damn it.
Yeah, one of the biggest daggers of the weekend. Marzhew, the Broncos with a few tough games to come. A bye coming out. They also have a bye at some stage. Oh, they had the bye around 4.
When's the Knights' next bye? It's the only good thing. I think he probably covers a couple of tricky ones maybe coming up.
So the Knights have the bye in round 19. So their early bye coverage is done at 675k, break even 34. Obviously misses this week. Round 17 plays Penrith in the Doggies. Potential sell or stick strong?
I think Greg... Given the fact he only misses round 19, as long as he doesn't miss any more buses, I think he's just a definite hold. I really like owning him. That left edge could come alive at any point. He scored, 140 a couple of weeks ago. I think he's a definite hold.
And with Kalen Ponga fit and firing, I think that left edge, I'm with you. Even though KPL's at fullback now, but just still prefers strongest on the left edge. So at the Newcastle Knights also, I feel like I need to touch on this just because it makes me so happy, but Phoenix Crossland, hooker. Played 80 minutes last week.
Did play 80.
Didn't score that well. Don't really care because I didn't play him. But talking of one more weeks, if Crossland can play his 80 again this week, I don't know if he will or not with Kurt Mann on the bench, but...
It'd be huge.
Oh, if you could bunch me another 36 again, I'm going to take that. Or another 80 odd like the other way around. Anyway, Crossland, happy days. At the Roosters.
Who's the fullback?
In the fullback slot, Joseph Manu.
Yes! Huge.
Big one. So massive captaincy option there, Joey Manu.
While we're on Joe, quickly, and you might have spoke about it today on the Bloke podcast, but is he all right? What's going on with him? He's can't really bust, just physically not busting tackles like he normally would or showing that step off the mark.
Look, potentially there's something going on body-wise, but I don't want to keep knocking at this door, but he's not a 5'8", and even when he's at 5'8", because you have to try and create there. You can just see him in two minds of, do I pass? Do I go flat out at the line? He's always in two minds.
Not quite all in. Just a couple of times I was watching pretty close on the weekend and actually thought he played nearly his best game at 5'8" in the first half. He looked pretty good. He was running both sides. Just when he did take blokes on, they were chopping him with ease. And it was just interesting because that's not the Joey we know. But back at fullback, let's see what he can do.
Take the indecision out of it. Back at fullback where he belongs. I mean, where he belongs in terms of Supercoach. It's a run-first mentality at fullback. So we'll know after this weekend. But great for Supercoach. Sandon Smith starts in the halves for the Roosters. So another little one there to keep an eye on.
To watch.
In the centres for the Roosters, Corey Allen, number 3.
What have we got in the 4?
Number 4, Billy Smith.
Billy Smith, he's back.
He's back.
It's not all bad then, so far.
Yeah.
Yep, need Billy as that extra number.
So, very handy one there, Billy Smith. Moving over to the Parramatta Eels, named at 5'8", Ryan Madison.
Really? They dropped? Oh, I know what's happening here, because they're new halfback. So, yeah.
So,
Matt
Dion Arcee, who was so good against the Doggies, he slotted in to Dylan Brown's spot there seamlessly.
Effortlessly.
God, I thought he played well.
I've liked him in the past as well, so good to see. Huge for Para fans, just quietly, if he can do a job there.
Unfortunately, he's 477k, only available at 5'8", Arcee, but man, he looked good. So, Madison, I mean, you probably wouldn't go on him at, let's say he does play 5'8", he may or he may not, but keep an eye on that one. Sean Lane on the extended bench. Also named early to return from injury.
Yeah.
If he was to come in starting side game day, would consider it or too early from injury?
I think the vibes around him this year is I just find it hard to trust him physically, so I don't think I'd want to rush him back in.
What about Maddo?
We know how much I love him, but Maddo, look, he'll go back to an edge or a middle at some stage, so if you have to play him for 1 week at 5'8", he's pretty skillful bugger, so I think it was City Country. 6 or 7 years ago he played for. He killed it. He's a lot littler then, but look, he's an option. And then you lock him in for the rest of the year as well. Plays around 19, so I still don't mind it. Yeah,
I just struggle to bring blokes in off the back of soft tissue injuries like calves and hammies. First game back, I always want to see him get through one game.
What did he hurt again?
Maddo, a calf, I believe.
Yeah, that's a bit more tender. I sort of forgot it was soft tissue.
Yeah.
So
that always concerns me a little bit, especially when it's a team who, they need a half this week, and they're just, I mean, they wouldn't risk him, but you know what I mean.
And they miss round 18, so I guess if he's looking the goods and he's back, you grab him round 19 for the run home.
Yeah, true. At the Manly Warringah Seagulls, KO Weeks at fullback, Ruben Garrick at centre, where we all know he doesn't score well in Supercoach, and you just got to write him off.
Mate, I've said for a long time he's his best spot centre in Supercoach. No, he's
We didn't say it at right centre though.
We did say left centre.
We said left centre.
He actually looks so natural there. It was good to see.
Oh my God, he's good.
It's like shades of Mark Gasnier. I think we were chatting about. He's just that in and away, fanned, offload, everything. He and outside Cherry is a different ball game to Schuster because Schuster's deep in the line all the time. He cuts space. Needs like that hard running centre.
It's a good point. Sorry to cut you off, but you're spot on in that. Like playing at centre, I was going off history and saying that at centre he just hasn't scored well in the past. But it's a great point in that Schuster does play for that turbo sweeping out the back. Creating, there's often that line running centre who doesn't get a lot of ball.
Almost like a back rower role.
Whereas Ches, as you said, he'll cut out his back row with that flat fast ball to the centre, and it just was a gift for him.
It's beautiful, and he's mincing his bloke one-on-one with ease. So Cherry will keep doing that. Right centre. It's exciting to see how he goes there for the rest of the season.
News.
Yeah.
Manly Warringah Seagulls starting second row forward. Samuel Afonu.
Nice, you've got him, yes?
Yeah, you don't own him?
No, I didn't end up getting him, but he does well.
Very happy about that one. That being said, he was named to start last weekend and he didn't. It was a game day swap to the bench, so hoping that stays that way. If it does, he's a viable option in terms of a purchase. But
what's he at now?
So he's had one price rise of 57K. So he had the 2 early games off the bench, so the break even started relatively high early on. So I just think you'd need to see him come back and be that sort of 80-minute back rower. So probably wouldn't buy, but if you can lock down that 80-minute spot, anyway, worth a look.
Very good.
At the Tigers.
Just back to Manly. No Ben Trbojevic, just checking. Didn't sneak back in there, extended bench or anything.
I don't believe... I'll have a look
just
for
check for us. I've still got just his languishing about there for me.
But I don't believe so, mate.
And Kepi hopefully starting there somewhere for me for one more week.
What do we got? Kepi starting 13 for you.
Beautiful.
And Ben Trbojevic, not named.
You got me. Got me.
So, Tigers. Jake Simpkin named at hooker.
Mm-hmm.
Talon De Silva, the rookie hooker, a lot of hype around him. So... Simpkin has come into the equation a little bit this week and jumped on the radar of people. Obviously, the injury to Api Coruscant out long term with a broken jaw. Simpkin, 235K. Good minutes on the weekend, obviously, with Api going off fairly early. Is he a bloke that could slot into a difficult hooker position for us or not?
I think in the short term, playing around 16 and 19... Potentially, yes, but this will tie in a little bit to what we talk about shortly with trades and who we want to get back in. It's either going to be a 2-trade scenario once Appy's back, because you probably won't want him, or you're using 1 trade and then he's just sitting there as your backup hooker for the run home, which is nerve-wracking.
Which would be like, that's a dangerous thing to do.
It's a dangerous game. So for me, based on that, probably not. And I don't know how good his upside is. De Silva will come play minutes off the bench, I'd imagine.
So if he only plays 55 to 60, it's still okay, but
I think if it was early season, different story. You take his price rises and points, but I think back end of the year, we said it last week, I'd prefer to chase points and a bloke who's going to play that role for the rest of the year.
At the Melbourne Storm, in the halves, Jonah Pezzett coming in.
Awesome. Always good.
On the starting second row forward position. Left edge, Trent Loiero. Right edge, Tarek Sims.
Damn it.
Ellie's out. Ellie Katoa has not been named in the squad there. Mate, it's a blow. It's a blow for those who... There's plenty who jumped on the last couple of weeks, but all in all, there's been some good results in the team list thus far.
Yep, not too bad there. So who have I lost? Ellie and Marzhew. Not ideal at all, but it's Supercoach.
Does Ellie Katoa become a sell? Misses this week, won't play round 19. Obviously has the low score from the weekend. He's rolling average. He was like a borderline keeper if he hit his straps and everything went well, but you would suspect they're a high, not necessarily high ISO, but better 2RFs.
Yeah. So I've got Hosking, for example, who I don't know if he's going to be a long-term play for me with so many options for Penrith. he plays this weekend, but then I think I might still have 15 guys. So it depends on your numbers, obviously. I'm a little bit reluctant to sell Ellie just because I think he's so good, and Melbourne will probably round into form as they do. Runs that good line off Hughes. I've got a mind to maybe flip him to Mulatalo because I do want him this weekend.
Yep.
But maybe I can get someone else to Mulatalo and just hold Ellie because I think he could be pretty handy for the run home.
Yeah, each their own. If your side can cover him, he's fine to hold because it was a gash on the eye, so he may only miss this week and be back and come good and play a key role for them on the run home. Yep. So, yeah, I'm a bit the same, mate. Potentially selling this week, but certainly not a must. Spy, let's get on to round 16 planning. First question for you, mate. How many numbers do you have this week? We know that second major buy round, only your top 13 scoring players will count towards your score.
Let's have a little look now because this is an updated look.
So
two guys. You go first.
I'll go through my numbers first, and I currently have one trade locked in this week, and I won't get to who or where just yet. But after my one trade, I have 13 active players. They're all starters. They're all good scorers, so I'm pretty happy with it. However, there's a couple of blokes in there like Finu and like Phoenix Crossland, Billy Smith, who there could easily be, a 20 or a 30 in there. Let's say a 20 that I'd want to get rid of and ideally drop out of my best scoring players. So I would like 14, but the way I'm looking at my side so far, Spy, is, as always, stay flexible, stay fluid over the course of the Supercoach weekend. And if that 15-20 does come about, look to use my second trade. And if it doesn't, as I said, because I'm happy with my starting 13, try and save that second trade. We obviously have 3 trades available this week. Barring shit hitting the fan, I definitely won't be using 3. Could potentially use a second one. But at the moment, I'm 1 trade, which will give me 13 decent players.
Yeah, so I'm 13 now, plus Sonny Luke as a 14th. So I'm reasonably happy with that. Obviously too short of what I was coming into, but that's okay. Got 14 players. Sonny might see some more minutes with a bit of luck. He's obviously been playing bigger minutes in reserve grade lately, so maybe he does see 40 or 50 this week. We don't know, but that could be handy. They're early in the week, I think. So their first game, so we'll know what he scores. Sonny comes out and scores well, then I've got 13 to come. I won't really need to do anything. If Sonny comes out and scores a 5, maybe I'll then stay fluid and do something. Trade. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I think 14's happy enough, given a little bit of carnage. Because
my second question was going to be, how many players do you need this weekend? Do you want 14? Do you want 15? You look at your side, and if you have some battler who's your 13th player, let's say Franklin Pele. When I say battler, I mean someone who can score you 5 or 6 Supercoach points. That's where you go, just wait and see and look to go. The Doggers playing the last round, so probably a bad example.
But if it's an early game, you have a look at them, reassess. But the way I look at that, if I own, say, Pele, I'll put a line through him.
I actually do own Pele, and he was named on the extended bench anyway. But, so I think when I talk about locking in a second trade, I'd probably need a player to go sub 20. I think I'd be pretty keen to use another trade. Sub 25 would be borderline. Sub 30, if that was sort of 25 to 30, I'd go, you know what, I'll take my 27 and save the trade.
Yeah, I agree. Can't argue, mate.
Okay. Let's tie into a few more questions that have come in that revolve around round 16 planning. Question from Nordo. He has 15 players. Do I burn 1 to 2 trades on Hines and Ponga, or hold the 20 and save the 2 boosts? And he says he has 2 boosts. So let's take Nicho as an example. I think Nicho's a good example. Let's say you're sitting with 14 or 15 players. It might be 13, and you're sitting pretty well. You've got a good squad. Yep. Is someone like Nicho with his upside, would you be willing to burn a trade to not necessarily get an extra player this week?
I think I'd just want Nicho.
Yep.
Yeah. He can do so much damage. So many people will captain him, barring how vice captains go early in the round. You can just see a response from the Sharkies after last weekend against a Bulldog side that's really young at the moment. They struggled with probably the physicality of times against Para.
Pretty close to full strength.
Cronulla could go mad if they don't show up. So I think you need Nicho. And if we've said it a few times, but if you don't, you just don't watch the game or watch it like this and see if you can get through.
Agreed regarding Nicho. Let's say there's an owner out there with 14 players and Nicho's one of them. And let's maybe use someone like Kalen Ponga as the next example, or every other player who's on the table. would you still be looking to burn a trade or two to bring in someone who you may consider to be a keeper, despite the fact that you're already covered for this round?
Yeah, I've got this exact example. So I've got 14 players there now, but I really want Mulatalo. It's a good matchup. He plays around 19, so I don't really want to be waiting and miss out on a potential 140, 150 if it was to happen. So, yes, I'm going to look to use one trade this weekend to get Mulatalo in, even if it's for a guy that plays this weekend. Just straight swap him. Yeah, I'm happy to do it for a guy if he's got the upside that scares you. Not for someone who's going to plot his way to 50 or 60.
Yeah.
But if it's the upside factor, happy to do it. And even more so if he plays the round 19 bye as well. Because you'll lock in a trade that benefits you in the future, which is good. Whereas KP, for example, whilst I'm not for or against it, I haven't thought about it a whole lot, but he doesn't play the next bye round, so you're using an extra trade to then maybe not benefit you and won't benefit you moving forward. So I'd probably question that a little bit. I don't think it's wrong to do it. I just think I'd prefer a Mulatalo type who could go bang, bang in 16 and 19 and just hold for the run home. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Agreed. I think if you got 14, certainly 14 more than 15, I think 15 players, if they're 15 relatively decent players, you probably don't rush to trade anyone in, but personal preference, let's say it is Mulatalo and you think the Sharks are going to do a number on him. We know he's got a decent ceiling on him if all goes to plan, so maybe it's worth it. But yeah, 14 players, I think there's no harm in using a trade on a gun. 15 players, excluding Nicho Hynes, because I agree. I think if you had 16, Nicho's still... You're bringing Nicho in as a season-long keeper.
Yep. Just locking him in, massive upside. Even with like Mulatalo again, for example, and I had 15 or 16 players, which I thought I would coming in today, I'd still be happy to use one trade to get him in for someone who's already playing. Yep. So you're not really looking at numbers for the round as opposed to just locking in a gun who could go huge. I don't hate it.
Question from Jay Callahan. Would you consider selling round 16 players like Schuster, Harrison Edwards, Billy Smith, these blokes with high break-evens, he says, to help your team in the long run? So guys, again, let's say they're sitting with 13, 14 players already. They're active this week. They may or may not count towards your score. They give you a bit of insurance, but they will drop cash. Your team might be looking all right this week. Could you sell active players this week?
Yeah, definitely could. I'd want to keep it. I'd still want to have at least 14 players.
Just to cover that one.
So early HIA, if someone gets a 5 or something, then you still got that chance.
Maybe
to
laid
get
out
40,
on
50.
Sunday.
That's the other one as well. So, yeah, I'm certainly not against it, but I'd still want 14 players, probably minimum, if you're doing that.
For example, it hasn't come to it, and it was all pretty well sorted. But there was a time, I think last week, when I was rummaging through my trade plans and whatnot, and it may have come to the point where I think it might have even nearly been if Eli Katoa was named, and I had like a pretty well full squad on deck, nothing went poorly, that I would have been willing to flip Phoenix Crossland to Nicho Hynes. And that was with even sort of 13, potentially 14 players. So
I'd probably do that with 22 players.
Exactly. So to answer that
becomes
question,
irrelevant then,
Yeah. And again, Nicho's possibly the exception to this, but yeah, if your squad's set up well enough and you've got, I think what Spice said, as long as you've got 14 players, maybe a bit more questionable with 13, but if you've got your 14, I don't think there's any harm in selling any of those guys who could score pretty poorly.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, on that, I'd hold Schuster this week. I'd hold Billy Smith this week. But Harrison Edwards in particular, he's one that, maybe you could cull.
The only thing with like someone like Harrison, right, because I own him, he also covers around 19. He still played 60 minutes on the weekend. He covered he covered some time at hooker for Reed to have a rest late because there's a blowout. I think he could still be pretty valuable to you potentially, especially if he's playing 60 in the middle. I think you're laughing. I think he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
I think it's been a bit of a down couple of weeks just vice circumstance more than anything for him. So, yeah, don't rush him out, but there's an opportunity there to get a gun. I don't hate it.
And Spy, just a quick one from Daniel Burgess, a few questions around trades. And he says, sums it up very well, very quickly. Not a one-size-fits-all answer, but how many trades should we aim to have left post this round 16 bye? He says, I have the numbers to save 3 trades, but there are a couple of guns I wouldn't mind grabbing. So I suppose, where's your team at? How many trades left? And are you happy with the amount of trades? Would you ideally have a couple more or less? Where do you sit?
16 in hand at the moment, mate. Ideally, I'd probably have 2 more, but I'm happy that I had a crack early in the year and did certain things. That's fine. But 16 at the moment, rather than those people with like 20, for me means... I'll tell you exactly what I've written down. This is who I want to get back in ideally. Don't have to get all of them, but it would be nice. Is for feeder, probably 2 gun fullbacks for the run home.
Yeah.
Depending how blue these guys go.
Yep.
Maybe that doesn't end up being needed if Buller's killing it, for example. But 2 there, probably want Payne Haas back in. I think I want Munster back in, Harry, maybe someone like Tino. So that's straight away 7 guys I'd really like for the run home to be at max capacity, which means that takes me down.
You'd be scared not owning all of those blokes for the run home kind of thing.
So ideally I'd want that. Getting those guys in takes me down to 9 trades as it stands. 8 once I get Mulatalo, because he's my one must for the rest of the buys that I look at. So it leaves me about 8 trades. Isn't a heap. I mean, with depth this year, it's a little bit different. If you've got a full squad where you can cover guys, maybe trades don't become as important over that last 5 or 6 weeks. But if carnage happens, or
you're then relying a little bit on things going away and just getting a bit of the rub of the green,
a little bit of luck.
Like there. Late in the season, if a week like just happened occurs again, and there's guns that are out long term,
you wouldn't mind a couple up the sleeve just to cover yourself.
Like you're certainly cutting it a little bit fine. So in comparison, leading into this round, I have 18. Every chance I end up with 17 trades left after round 16. I'm happy with that. I've got to boost up the sleeve. On top of what you sort of said, I've held on to Dave Fafita. I've held on to Harry Grant. I now have a combination. Nicho Hines will be coming into my team this week. Nicho Hines and Mitch Moses, who I'm happy as it stands now to run that combo until Nathan Cleary comes back. So, again, there's a few there that I'll want back. Fullback probably being the key position, running Buller and Teddy there at the moment, who are doing a job. But, yeah, so I'm happy with where I'm at. There's not too many I need to come back in. But, yeah, like Munster's someone I'll want post-Origin. But, yeah, so as I said, 18 prior to this week, likely 17 after it, potentially 16, and I'm pretty comfortable. You're running a little bit low. Yeah,
like for me, I'll admit it's getting a little bit tight now, so I've got to be a little bit more cautious than others may need to be. And maybe it means down the line, if carnage hits a little bit during or post-Origin, it means I might not be able to get someone like Tino. That's okay. I just would like to have him. But blokes like Munster, I think, would be a must. The blokes that can really kill you. Interestingly, I still own Cleary, and the more I look at it, I'm just not sure I need to sell him. It's 2 trades to do it. I definitely don't need the cash. I've got about $500,000 in the bank from selling like Dylan Brown and these sorts of fellas for Feeder and Co.
It's like so myself running a combination like Tohu Harris and Joe Tarpanay at the front row.
Yep.
2 blokes that, if injuries do hit later on and you it then makes like Payne Haas and Tino Fasuamalawi somewhat luxury trades because you've got Tohu and Tarpanay there who are doing a good job. They're rock solid. Ideally, though, you post-Origin, you want Payne Haas and Tino.
Yeah, exactly.
So, when you're prioritising, say, Latrell Mitchell and Cam Munster and these big ceiling guys, that's probably have to skip. So if you've got a few trades up your sleeve, that's where you can lock them in.
That's where it can be such a benefit. And just on Cleary, you've got Mitch Moses there. So I'm Cleary and Hines. You're Mitch and Hines as it speaks. Mitch plays all going well for you round 17 after Origin. He'll then miss 18 and 19. Come round 20, Cleary's hopefully back by then. So it's only 1 game difference between you and me on that front. And I can obviously play someone else in round 17. So it's like, do I use 2 trades to get Nath back in and out? Or just not bother? I might just hold him there because I think those 2 trades could come in pretty valuable. So if you're holding Cleary, just one to consider. And that can be fluid as well. If it gets to a week and you're like, I need to trade him, you can do it.
Just do it.
But I just don't think it's a must trade, which seems weird, but just given the schedule and how it all works with buys, interesting one.
Yeah. One thing to note as well, don't want to sort of look too far into the future, but if the Blues do, God forbid, get done in Origin 2 and it becomes a dead rubber in Game 3, I do think Nicho slots in at 7 for Game 3 because, what have they got to lose?
Give him a crack,
in which case, Mitch becomes available. So that's why I've kind of got the 2 to cover each other.
Fair enough. I like it.
Guys, over the next 12 months, an estimated 60% of all fixed-rate mortgages are going to expire. Madness. That means that for a lot of you out there, you haven't felt the impacts of all the consecutive rate rises that have been dominating the media talk lately, ramped up again last week. I have spoken with Paddy and George about this in detail. They've told me that a lot of their clients still have a rate with a 1 or a 2 in front of it. The average rate is now around 5%. So what does this mean? Basically, that for a lot of people, their mortgage repayments are about to increase on average by $737 per month. It's a lot of extra money to have to find in the budget. Naturally, people are stressing out about it. Very understandable. That's why you do speak to the experts. Paddy and George, give them a call. Best thing about it, you'll save $129 on a free consult because you're an SC Playbook listener. So mention SC Playbook when you do get in contact with them. To do so, flick them a message on Instagram at Pat and George Mortgage Choice, all one word. Call them on 02 9521 1611. Doesn't matter if you're in New South Wales, Queensland, WA, England, I don't even know, all over the shop. Just giving them a buzz. All the information is on the SC Playbook website in any of our articles, emails, all sorts of things.
Maybe in Ireland. So I'll give it a
Ireland.
shout out because I love it. No particular
Had
reason.
in Georgia, they know all about their Irish rates. So wherever you are,
Yeah,
you
beautiful.
might be in Ireland with a property in Australia, and it may impact you. So in that case, give them a buzz.
You ripper.
Straight from Galway. Spy, hot topics for the week. Number one, most traded in player, Kalen Ponga, 604k, break even, 29. Buy, don't buy. He looks great. We all knew he was going to. He just need to stay in the field. Well, he's strung a few games together. Looked tremendous on the weekend against Brisbane at Suncorp. What do you reckon?
I'm getting more confident by the week just because he's strung some games together. Don't mind it. I think the thing is, right, just having a look at his draw, a lot of us probably have the numbers covered this weekend. Plays Penrith next week, which is never ideal. You don't want an attacking player versus Penrith if you can avoid it. Then round 18 looks pretty good, doesn't play 19. So if you don't own him, probably be a little bit hesitant if you've already got the numbers covered. On the flip side, he could go quite well this weekend, and I like his round 18 matchup. So 2 out of the next 3 weeks I quite like. He's playing some good footy, as we know. And I think the risk, well, it's always there with KP. The fact he's strung a few 80-minute performances together just gives you a little bit of solace, and he might maybe be okay, touch wood. But yeah, what are your thoughts on KP?
No knock on it at all. I'm not looking to do it. I'm happy with my sort of how my halves are looking at the moment. I've held Cody Walker there. I mean, look, I've got Phoenix Crossland, so he's one that I could easily flip. But the way I see it, I looked at it the same way as you with him on the bye round 19, playing Penrith next week. I've got Crossland there, who, as it stands, is an 80-minute hooker for the night, who is a valuable number for me this week. So
If they had the Titans next week, I'd be
it'd change everything.
like, get him for
but
3
Penrith.
weeks and see how we get. Penrith hurts.
Yeah, big time. So I'm not going to fault the buy to anyone, but for myself personally, I'm going to avoid Kalen Ponga. I think we've both sort of agreed, without directly speaking about it. Nicho Hines, 789k, second most traded in player, big break even of 126, but 126 is a break even that Nicho can hit in his sleep, coming off a really poor week for himself and the club. They're close to full strength, the Sharkies. There's a big score potentially in him here. Missed Origin, so as it stands, he'll get round 16 and round 19. He'll be on the bye next week for the Sharkies. Do note that, but I see him as close to a must-have.
Here's a good question for you on the run. Joey Manu comes out Saturday whenever they play at fullback, scores 105. Then you go, I've locked that in. Do you roll it into Nicho, or do you just take the 105? Because with this matchup for Nicho, it could be anything. What's your figure there? Yeah, what's your figure there on Manu? If he's your vice captain, what does he have to score?
It's hard because if you asked me 2 weeks ago before the Nathan Cleary debacle when Cody got 100 and I didn't loot,
You'd be more
I would have
confident.
said, no, I wouldn't take 105, not a chance, even in a free week with Nicho's matchup.
Yep.
But having been
Now-
burnt just before then, I'm like, off the back of that, probably I'd be looking at maybe 115 comes to mind. Anything higher, free loop, I'd be taking. Anywhere between that, 100 to 110 becomes the grey area.
Awkward,
I'm not
yeah.
taking anything less.
Yep.
115 I'd lock in, 100 to 115 grey area. You?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. 105 would be the worst score to get
Yeah.
because I wouldn't know what
And
to
I'm
do.
almost certain Manu lands smack bang on 105 because it happens every time. It's never easy.
Yeah, 100%. But I get the feeling if he's below 110, I'm probably going to roll Nicho because I just think Cronulla are set this week. But so maybe their confidence took a whack and they won't recover. We'll see.
I'll throw another one at you. Let's say your halves are Jerome Hughes and Matt Burton. You've got two good halves there. Would you get Nicho in for one of them?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'd probably get him in for. He's got a ton last week.
I still have a sick feeling in my gut, Nicho, from not owning that first game back. I'm just like, I just never want to watch him like that again.
I know. That's why I held him for his awesome 43 on Sunday. It's good.
Okay, let's go to the number 7 most traded in players. It stands Jerome Hughes, 650 odd K. That's not right. 591K. Break even 32. A little bit frustrating because I wanted to bring him in within the last 2 weeks, and just the way things played out with, again, there's been so much uncertainty around players, and then last weekend players out and uncertainty around origin selections, didn't do it. And I'm not gutted by it, and I was actually, if anyone did sort of follow the advice and go with James Hughes, turned up, quite a big one, looked terrific. I don't say look back because he hadn't been poor to start the season, just a little bit below his standards. Is he still a buy with a break even of 32? And it was really good against the Sharkies.
Definitely an option. The way I look at that is the Tigers, we weren't great on the weekend, the Tigers. They can never beat the Titans, but they've been defending all right of late. He loses Munster and Harry.
Tigers lose Brooks and Appy. Like, the
Brooks and
pack
Appy.
is still pretty well
The
there.
pack's still Bateman, Papali'i, these sort of guys. No Stefano.
Guess who got named? You'll never guess it.
Who?
The bloke got named 5'8" for the Tigers. I expect changes.
Stafford.
Yeah, stuff.
Yeah, he's actually a gun. Watch out.
At
There's
5'8",
there's no one left. He played at the back end of last
Will
week.
Smith's on the extended bench.
Is he? Yeah, he played at the back end of last week, and he was by far their best player. I couldn't believe how
At
good
5'8".
his touch. I couldn't believe how good his touch was. So I wouldn't mind seeing him get one crack. But he's had no prep there. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
So he's a skillful bugger.
They're just, I feel like they're going to be so rudderless. Anyway,
Dane Laurie's out
Yeah.
in lower grades. There's a bit going on. They got no one left. So yeah,
I think Jerome Hughes remains a solid buy. The issue is that if you don't own Nicho, even at 200k more and the break evens, Nicho is still the priority for me. I would find the money to get him.
purchase. Yeah,
And secondly, I'm going to jump ahead to most traded out, number 7, Mitch Moses. 815k, break even 83. Obviously picked for Origin. Short backup on the Saturday from Origin 2. But Para without a half, with Brown out. I mean, Ryan Madsen was named there this week.
they want him there if they can, if he can do it.
They need him.
Yep.
So I think he'll back up and play the Dolphins.
Which is a great matchup all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think Mitch Moses is a sell. I guess.
I wouldn't sell him till after that game. I don't think.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I would to Nicho.
I was going to say,
But no
I'll
one
throw
else.
another curly
Yeah.
one. Let's say you've got a half of Hughes and Birdo, like one of them's Hughes or Birdo, and then your other half is Mitch Moses. In that instance, would you flick him to Nicho and run that with either of the other two? You probably do. You probably do.
Probably, yeah.
It's
My gut says that it's just purely gut feel.
Mm.
Not convinced Jerome's going to have the craziest end to the year, especially over the short period with players out
I
this
mean,
week.
he hasn't been crazy. He was averaging
Yeah.
55 before the
Penrith
weekend.
coming out. They had an Amy Park special Sunday arvo. Sharks didn't turn up. They got Manly at Amy Park around 7 a.m, which is not a bad one. They don't play many more at Amy Park. 1, 2. 2. It's not good for Melbourne. 3 more games at Amy Park to end the season, which is their stronghold. That's
Yep.
where you get excited about Melbourne. So I'm not super convinced on Jerome. I think he'd be a solid buy for you. But Nicho way in front, and I don't mind holding Mitch for that round 17 clash and then reassessing after that.
Yeah. Yep, fair play. Mate, number 5, Billy Smith, 386k. I don't spend much time on this because it's probably maybe more of a head-to-head move for people who don't need him and have flipped him on because he was a laid out on the weekend against Penrith. Overall players, don't sell him. He's a valuable number this week. Decent matchup against Newcastle, who are pretty leaky, and you know he could hit 80 or something. Be a valuable number.
70 odd coming in, incoming.
If he
this
scores
week.
his 30 that he has done the last couple of weeks, sell him next week.
So I use him for a good game.
Yeah, if you're head-to-head player and you're not playing this week and you don't need him, I'd still nearly hold him, to be honest, but I understand it more so. Jeremy Marshall-King, 620k, break-even 97, injured on the weekend. They do have to buy the Dolphins this week. Do you think James K's a sell in a tough hooker position?
No. Plays around 19, back next week. I'd be holding. The week off will do him wonders.
Yeah.
Obviously, a bit of concern he can redo it, like he did aggravate on the weekend, but I think, again, I'd hold him through at least round 17.
Like, who do you go to? There's not a lot of great
He's been
hookers.
awesome. Only that shoulder slowed him up. That's
Yeah.
it. So
Number 11, most traded out. This one surprised me. Alex Johnston. 645k, break even 77. Bunnies have the bye this week, but they play around 19. The fact that Cody Walker has missed Origin, as it stands, great news for AJ.
handy.
The reality is that and while they will be missing them round 19, no Latrell on the weekend, no Cody Walker. That 2080 score was not surprising at all. It was like he was never going to get the quality ball. Cody, Trell, they create this space. They put it on a platter for him. He scores his tries. He had Dean Hawkins on his edge. With no disrespect to Dean Hawkins isn't Latrell or Cody Walker.
Hard to replace Latrell Cody. Also, he nearly had 2 or 3 again.
Yeah.
Did you see the one where Isaiah Tass double pumped to him and went himself and he crashed over through someone?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe he didn't pass it. He would have got ridiculed, something chronic, and he did score, but that's 30 points any other day. Like 99 out of 100, that's another 30. He scores his 58 points. Yeah, beauty without his best players.
So no go on selling AJ?
I'd definitely hold him.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either.
Him and Cody.
Overall, head-to-head, anyone just don't get it.
Doesn't even need Latrell now. It's just Cody.
Maxie Bryden, who was on our, I believe, round 13 podcast, head-to-head specialist, legend of a fella, switched on bloke. He's going to do an article for the SC Playbook website this week. Couldn't get him on this week, the podcast. Busy man, new father. Head-to-head focused article on the blokes that it holds and trades and sells and that sort of thing from a head-to-head perspective. So that will be coming out and will be a valuable read.
What a legend, Maxie. Just what?
Man, Maxie hosting in a few weeks.
Champion.
The SC Playbook podcast, guys, has partnered with Better this season, producing markets of our own. There is no market this week. As I said, busy couple of days, so we don't have one up. I haven't had time to whip it together just yet. Keep an eye out for them each and every week, though, going forward. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Spy, your round 16 trades and skippers. Talk to me.
Trades at the moment, nothing. But I do want Mulatalo. So just got to have a little look at, as the weekend goes on, as how that actually unfolds. As I said, I'm pretty reluctant to sell Eli Katoa, so I'll just have a look at who else would go to Mulatalo. Maybe someone like Hosking, who I'm probably going to sell next weekend anyway. That is still give me 14 players. I just have a feeling about the Sharks and Mulatalo this week. And there's nothing worse than not backing your gut in and just saving that trade and he scores 120. It would kill me. So I'll find a way to get Mulatalo in. VC, Joey Manu, 1,000,000%, and skipper, Nicho Hines, 1,000,000%,
Yeah.
pending Manu.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to look too far past. I think of VC, Joey Manu, Nicho Hines captaincy, and I'll be doing the same with my skippers. As it stands, for once in a lifetime, that trade just worked out financially. Eli Katoa out, Nicho Hines in via Josh Schuster to 2RF, Phoenix Crossing down to 5'8", did it with 6K to spare. One
You
trade.
beauty.
Thank God. Every time I've done that this season, I've missed out by like negative $100. Like, and then that leaves about 6 hours of a Friday or a
Get
Thursday.
you some
doing
life
trade.
back.
I know, just wonderful.
Bloody Nicho and he's 43 at the worst time.
So, I would like to get Ronaldo Mulitalo in. I'm like you, Sway. I see upside in him. I think he's a great fourth, sort of fifth CT-dub option for the run home, covers 2 major buy rounds. Tempted to get him in, but as it stands, I think I'll avoid it. If I don't, let's say a player has a really low score this week and I do decide to use another trade, couple I potentially eye off. There's maybe finding a way to Mulitalo. I do have 2 RFs or like even a Crossland or someone via Jules that I can get in. Mulitalo, if I need a cheaper option, I wouldn't flock to him, but Jacob Carraz, don't love him. We'll get to him a bit more. There's a question, we'll get to him now, but he had something like 17 runs again on the weekend. Hasn't been the same as he was earlier on this season, but for a bloke who has big work rate, the Doggies hopefully a couple of middles coming back soon, plays 16 and 19, just at his price. I don't mind him as you've
It's a nice pick up for the run home. You can just hold him. He does miss next week, I believe, round 17. So just be wary of that if you're getting him. But yeah, he's sort of, I was so big on him pre-injury, but I'm always wary of people come back from injuries and how they're looking. Hasn't quite hit his straps yet, but he's not playing poorly either. I think the Bulldogs are in just a little bit of a tough spot at the moment with a lot of young blokes on their roster, all playing together. So it's just a bit of hard work in terms of territory and getting space and whatnot. So it's just how they go. If they can turn it around to a degree, he'll be on the end of things. But geez, nice to own because he just locks in that 40, 50
just
most
pretty
weeks.
Safe. And we know if he can get back to full fitness or the Doggies, whatever has dropped off from earlier on in the season, pretty safe go at the price.
Oh, great buy at the price, absolutely.
Spy, question from Sassy. What are we doing with Dylan Brown if we held through the first week that he missed?
So I was going to say definitely sell him, but what, he caught in a couple of weeks?
I believe, isn't he guaranteed to miss like 2 more games?
Yeah, so I mean,
proceedings?
in a perfect world...
but then has the bye round 18, so he'd miss 16, 17, 18, back round 19.
Could be that for 19.
It's a long time for a bloke that might not play again this season. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So.
if you can go Brown to someone decent, I'd just do it. In saying that, if you're going to go Brown to someone not amazing, then I'd be maybe happy to hold. But we've seen, I mean, not an expert at all, but court cases don't tend to get resolved really quickly in Australia, it seems. So maybe it seems unlikely.
I think he's a sell.
Yeah,
he's a sell.
Happy to sell him.
A
But
lot of money on your bench.
Do it for the right person, though.
Yeah, flip him. Question from Mike Oroki, who just week in, week out knows how to drop a banger of a question. How about this for a name that's completely flown under the radar? Taniela Paseka, 4 60-plus scores in a row. Taught me out of Pele to him. Obviously, Manly playing this weekend. They missed 19. But yeah, 64, 64, 68, 64, averaging about 55 minutes in that time, basing similar, about 50 to 55. He's now at 588k. Good numbers.
That is good numbers. I wonder how Jake's impending return, whenever that happens, impacts him. But for now, he looks a pretty decent buy if you want to plug him in.
Yeah. I mean, if you own Pele to him, and my favourite, so satisfying getting rid of Deadwood in your team that's just sitting there doing nothing like Pele. So you have Pele to Fino, bit of a pod play. Not that he scores or assists a lot, but there is a bit of attacking upside in him because he's such an Adonis. So, yeah, I don't think it's too bad to play.
I don't know. Just quietly, I've actually got $408,000 spare, and I've got Sonny Luke there. So I could potentially go Luke to someone, but yeah, just one to ponder.
Luke,
I'm going to get Harry back next week.
Phoenix Crossland.
Yeah, Phoenix.
By Jules.
Surely I can't afford Phoenix after his run.
Yeah, it'll be 800k after this week. Question from... I mean, here's one for you, Spy, and we did chat about him, but Taylor Goodall, would you trade Sonny Luke to Jake Simpkin? My worry for Simpkin is he'll hit a ceiling of 400k and be hard to trade back out. Now, you have spoken a little bit about him, but Sonny Luke to Jake Simpkin?
No, I don't love it for reasons stated before. If Jake had the hooker spot for the rest of the year and Appy was out, sure. But I think with Appy due back at some stage, not hugely keen on it. Test your depth, 2 trades to get him in and out, probably not.
Question from Tommy. Is Dom Young a pod play? So Dom is at 564k, break even of -5. Scored a Michael Dublé on the weekend, 111 points. Certainly a pod play. We know there's upside in him. Top score of 148 this season. Any love?
Checking his runs. Not a huge work rate, but not horrible.
Basing 21 this season, so quite poor.
But loves the tackle bust and those sort of things. Yeah. Gee, you can find space because he gets a sniff and scores, basically. Yeah, I don't hate it.
I mean, look at his recent scores. He's averaging 62, 111, 79, a low of 18 against the Sharkies, 63, 63, 52, 26. That was against Penrith. Put a line through every attack against Penrith, essentially. 59, 148. Hard to knock. Hard to knock for a bloke with upside.
9 in round 1. That sums up Dom. Like, he's got loads in him, but I do think there's more good than bad in him. I don't hate it as a little pod. Yeah. Round 16 Smokey.
Yeah.
Ponga playing. I don't hate it.
It's pretty cheap. Got that negative break even. So worst case, he makes you good money. He's in a buy down number. So I'm at the same. I don't mind. Look, I'm not doing it, but with a -5 break even, there's good money incoming. Worst case scenario.
Yeah, just make sure you don't have to play him next week against Penrith. But yeah,
pretty much. Mate, we're going to wrap that up for the SC Playbook podcast for NRL Supercoach Round 16. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Quick shout out to the boys at the Forestville RSL last Friday, Arvo. I was walking through with the young fella and I heard Spy, and I turned around all excited. And we yarned Supercoach, boys from the local. So it was good to see them. We'll do it again soon.
Wasn't it a good sort for a change?
Not this time, unfortunately.
Righto, guys. Thanks for tuning in and good luck in NRL Supercoach Round 16. Matty? Yep.